Welcome to weekend 4 recap for our 10 weekend yoga teacher training adventure together. If you were there, I am so excited for how everything is going, and our group is getting more and more connected to each other, to the teachings of yoga, to learning how to teach, and so many great things are happening. And if you're watching this as a recap or just as a learner, welcome, and I'm excited to share with you what we went over in Module 4. So let's dive right in. The first thing that we did when we got together, of course, we check in and we see how everyone's feeling after a couple weeks off. We talk about what yoga classes that we've gone to, anything interesting that has come up, any challenges, that kind of stuff. But then we got right into teaching, to get our bodies moving, teaching a sun salutation. Each of us went through and taught one sun salutation. So we keep going back in order to move more forward. So we're not going to go through a topic and then forget about it and never come back to it. Instead, we go through something and then we'll revisit it as we continue our practice, because just like anything, repetition is the key to mastery. So we all went around, I think there were 8 or 9 of us, and we each led a sun salutation, and the improvement and how well people are doing is amazing. So great job with your sun salutation. Beyond that, then we started to talk about our 5 pose sequences. Last time I gave the homework of creating 3 sequences, 5 poses each. 1 to open the heart and heat the core, or vice versa. 1 to twist and rotate the body, and 1 to open and heat the hamstrings and hips. So we went through those poses one by one, each person at least sharing one of their sequences. And we went through the poses and just we wrote them down and then looked at them to see if maybe something should be adjusted, or if like a bigger pose needed more warm-up, that might be number 5. So we adjusted the order of the poses if needed, and also then practiced them ourselves just to learn the transitions. Less about teaching them and finding the cues in the words, but more about the transitions and how the flow and the sequence goes. We'll get to the words later. So the sequencing component of it and the transitions in between the poses we were really working on. So you can do this with any 5 pose sequence, and it can have a theme to it, or it can be just like 5 random poses, really, hopefully not too random, but you can just pull like flashcards out and see how the order of the flashcards or order of the poses would best be suited to be able to warm up a certain area of your body before stretching it. So an important thing to remember is you do need warm muscles before you stretch them. If you go right away into a deep stretching pose, you can do a lot of harm. We also got on the topic of with hot yoga, if you are in a heated environment, it tricks you and tricks your body into thinking that you're already warm and don't need to heat those muscles before stretching deeper. And that is where a lot of injuries happen. In my case, when I was an athlete on the college track team, it was known that we had to do more warm-ups or better warm-ups and more getting into that warm-up on hotter days. More people tear their hamstrings and have injuries on hot days because they didn't fully warm up, thinking that, it's hot outside, their muscles are warm, they're feeling good. So the colder it is, not saying your classes have to be cold, but the colder it is, oftentimes you're safer when you get into movement practices because you'll end up warming up a little slower, a little bit more mindfully. So keep that in mind when we go throughout our practice, is you have to have warm muscles, you have to have engaged them before we get into the deep stretches. Thinking with our 5 pose sequences, we want to be able to engage before we stretch. So if we're doing a deep back bend, make sure that you're doing a core or an ab exercise to heat up the front of the body before you open and expand. And same goes with the hamstrings. If you're going to be deep forward folding, make sure that you're engaging and lengthening, maybe adding some lunges and standing poses before getting into those deep folds. So this gets into sort of how our class is formatted. We have to rise up with a nice warm up. This is a lot of active standing poses. And when you come down, there's a lot more stretchy, deeper into the flexibility component. So strengthening and stretching. But of course, we're going back and forth. Just know that strengthening and heat building is going to be very important before you get to those deep stretches. So now, right away, I'll mention our homework. With the 5 poses we did, I'll also give you a list so you can practice them if you didn't create your own. But with those 5 poses, whether it's the one I give you or if you see them within the manual or whatever 5 pose sequence you'd like to create, take it from what you had or one of mine, the homework is to write out exactly how you would say and what you would say in a class teaching those 5 poses. And thinking of those 5 poses as ones that you would hold a little bit longer. It's not ones that you just flow right through. So you're holding it for 3 to 5 breaths each pose. Write out exactly what you would say. And you should have at least a page of written words for this, if not a lot more. It depends how much you want to talk and how much you want to hold the pose, but there should be at least 1 page of exact words, exact verbiage, exact copywriting of what you would verbally say in a class to teach those 5 poses. And I also want to note that when you do that, I don't want any pose names in there. So you cannot, and should not say things like, go back to downward facing dog. Next is warrior 1. And now warrior 2, breathe. We need more than that. So get rid of the names of the poses. We can use them later, just not right now. Get rid of the names of the poses and tell people what to do. Step your right foot between the hands. This is that direction, action, and body part. So action would be stepping. The body part would be the foot. And where? In between the hands. And then reach out and up. There's your direction and action. Reach out and up with your arms, or arms reaching out and up. Gaze stays forward. Thinking of those 3 things: action, body part, and direction. Remember those from our cueing exercise. Now you can say an inhale or an exhale before the action, body part, and direction, but you don't need them, not for these specifically. It does help when we're flowing. For these ones, it depends if you want, if you do or do not want the inhale, exhale. It depends how much in your head you're getting about this. So I at least want you to be talking to the body and telling students where to go without saying names of poses. Later on, when you're in the pose, let's say you're in a warrior 1, you can tell people, like, now we're in warrior 1, or now we're in what is often called warrior 1. You'll get so many names, especially English name variations of each of these poses, that it's going to be a little bit confusing if you have someone coming to your class and you say, okay, everybody in frog pose, and to 3 different people, frog pose is different. So talking to the body, and I won't get any more on that. Just know that you should have a lot of writing words for this 5 pose sequence. That is it for that. So 5 pose sequence, written out completely verbatim what you would say, and then we're going to practice and teach them the next time.